evening. Good evening and welcome. Thank you very much. You know, 7 years ago, when I arrived at the Human Rights Campaign, we found ourselves, if you remember, in a battle with then President Bush over the federal marriage amendment. 7 years later, I stand before you at my last national dinner, about to introduce our current president, Barack Obama. And it is fair to say that as a community, we have accomplished more in the last 2 years than we have in the previous 40. Now, 7 years ago, as we plotted that attack on a constitutional ban on our marriages, I certainly never dreamed that 6 years later, I would marry a former Federal Club co-chair from Minneapolis named Jed Hastings. Right here in the District of Columbia. And 7 years ago, it was certainly hard to imagine looking out into this room and seeing openly gay men and lesbians proudly wearing the uniform of this great country. It has been an extraordinary journey, marked as much by the lows as the highs. But through it all, I have had the privilege and the honor to work with people who have genuinely been heroes and trailblazers in this movement. It is all of you who have stood at the center of this success, and it is all of you who have come to define what the Human Rights Campaign means to me. Now, perhaps no two people embody that spirit to me more than Dennis and Judy Shepard. We know the horrific details of their son Matthew's death, and we know how they channeled their grief into inspired and effective advocacy. But the medal of the Shepards, the crystallizing moment for me, was not when we celebrated victory in 2010, but when we faced a seemingly insurmountable defeat years before. It was 2007, and while we had strength in Congress, we also faced a hostile White House. So we attached the hate crimes bill to the defense authorization bill in an attempt to avoid a presidential veto. Now, we didn't anticipate that the right-wing congressional leaders at the time would be willing to sink the entire defense bill just to stop the hate crimes provision. We had come close, but we ended up falling short. Now, I knew that the first call that I had to make that day was to Judy Shepard. When I reached her and reported that the hate crimes amendment had been stripped, she simply asked, "How are you doing? How is the staff? What's next? Because next time we'll win." And in that moment, I knew that this was who we are. When things are at their worst, we keep our eye on the prize, but we also learn to adapt. Do we get angry? Of course we do. But we're not blinded by our setbacks. We get about the business of getting things done. Now, then there's my friend, former Marine Staff Sergeant Eric Alba. Who emailed me in the middle of the night 5 years ago and asked what he could do to help end Don't Ask, Don't Tell. For years, when repeal seemed so far off, Eric did it all, and very little of it was glamorous. We sent him to cities he had never heard of. He hosted town hall meetings. He talked to legislators, and he organized veterans. This brave Marine who lost his leg only asked me, "What's next?" Eric never walked off the field. He never let anger or frustration rule the day. He never gave up, and neither did we. Well, that spirit is alive in this room tonight. That spirit sees beyond the barriers that are put in our way. That spirit sees a wall and either scales it or digs a tunnel under it. It is the sheer determination and energy that drives the brilliant, hardworking HRC staff and the extraordinary army of volunteers all across this country that I have had the honor to work with. It is the story of the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community going all the way back to Stonewall, through the heavy toll of the AIDS epidemic, and to our fight for equality today. And ultimately, it is how we will win marriage equality all across this country. Now, for many of our family members, friends, and yes, even our political allies, support has often been more about evolution than revolution, and it will continue to be. Our success in changing hearts and minds and then changing laws has always meant meeting people where they are and never walking away from that conversation. We know that to move forward, we must continue to stand with those who have a history of standing with us. And that includes standing strong and proud with Barack Obama. No president has done more to improve the lives of LGBT people than President Obama. No longer will gay and lesbian couples be kept apart when we are at our most vulnerable, in the hospital, thanks to President Obama. He kept his word, and he ushered in the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, while others promised to reopen the wounds of that discriminatory policy. And unlike those who want to keep same-sex couples as strangers under federal law, our president has called the Defense of Marriage Act unconstitutional and indefensible. Key to the pace of marriage equality in this country, we know that our president will continue to appoint fair-minded judges who faithfully interpret the Constitution of this country. Our president has called on all Americans to recognize our common humanity. He tells young LGBT kids that life will get better for them. He emphatically argues that our Constitution's promise of equal protection includes all of us. President Barack Obama has stood with us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our moment to stand with him. Please join me in welcoming the President of the United States, Barack Obama.